Good morning. Morning, thank you. It's great to hear a good morning right back. I am delighted to see so many of you. I know there were lots of activities last night, so I appreciate so many of you joining us relatively early this morning for the second and final day, or third day, of the Better Buildings Summit in 2022. Again, thank you all so much for being here. As a reminder, my name is Maria Vargas. I oversee the Better Buildings Initiative with an amazing team at DOE and some contractors for the Department of Energy, and it's our pleasure to have all of you with us today. We've got a really great plenary for you this morning. We're going to be recognizing many of you in the room, most notably the organizations that hit their goal in the last year, and we're going to bring them up on stage and give them some recognition. But we're also going to do something which has been a bestseller, if you will, for the summits over the past couple of years, and that is we've asked 3 experts from our national labs, 3 different national labs, to come up and tell you. They get to do a presentation, which isn't usually what they do, but that's what the Better Building Summit's about. We asked them to tell you 1 or 2 things that they are really excited about, they think you should be on the watch for, and are open to taking all of your questions. So as all of you know, the summit is designed to be interactive. That includes plenary sessions. So as a reminder for those of you who weren't here yesterday, you have index cards on your table. Those are meant for any questions that you have. So as you hear from the lab speakers as part of the plenary this morning, please do write down your questions, and then folks will be traveling around to pick those up because we want to hear from you and make sure that you're able to ask any question you want of the experts that we have with us today. So speaking of with us today, we had hoped to have the Undersecretary of Energy, Dr. Jerry Richmond, with us in person. She got called on travel by the White House, but she wanted to make sure that she was here in spirit, and so she sent some remarks. So if I can just play some quick remarks from Dr. Jerry Richmond. She is the Undersecretary at the Department of Energy for Science and Innovation, and so in her role, she oversees the Office of Science, which is the nation's largest federal sponsor of basic research in the physical sciences. DOE's applied research and development area is of nuclear, fossil, renewable energy, and energy system integrity, and the DOE national labs and their facilities. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce just a couple remarks from Dr. Jerry Richmond.
Thank you, Maria, and good morning, everyone. I'm Jerry Richmond, Undersecretary of Science and Innovation at the U.S. Department of Energy. I wish I could be with you in person, but I wanted to pass along my gratitude for your partnership and your commitments to improve how we use energy in this country. Today, more than 350 organizations are partnering with DOE to set portfolio-wide energy reduction goals. Thanks to all those partnering in the Better Buildings Initiative, collectively we've saved 2.5 quadrillion BTU of energy equivalents to more than 150 million tons of carbon dioxide avoided. That's as much carbon as nearly 20 million homes' energy use for a year, and more than $15 billion saved. Money that goes back into our economy. You've also shared thousands of solutions so that others can learn from your work. And that helps all of us accelerate the pace of greater energy efficiency, the cornerstone of decarbonization efforts. The feedback you share with DOE through the Better Building Initiative helps inform my office and the Office of Science of the needs and the priorities of the marketplace. And this helps shape how we invest in research and create technical assistance. Your input has helped develop technology information suites designed to help the market understand and overcome technical barriers. From conduction losses and solar gains in windows to advanced refrigeration technology, these resources provide in-depth insights into the latest technological advances. As manufacturers, the feedback you give us through the Better Plants program and challenge, including through in-plant trainings, technology days at the national labs, and the work currently underway through the Industrial Technology Validation Pilot, has helped us better understand the real-world challenges of driving change across your sector. And I especially want to celebrate the work of our goal achievers here today. You committed to ambitious portfolio-wide energy and water reduction goals, and you met them. Congratulations, and thank you. Collectively, more than 90 Better Buildings Challenge partners have met an energy reduction goal, 13 have met a water reduction goal, and 27 financial allies have met a financing goal. This year, we had 12 goal achievers who demonstrated what it meant to be market leaders. We've highlighted their work and the achievements of many others in our annual progress report released yesterday, and we are so incredibly proud of everything that you have accomplished. Your success is an example to other organizations across the nation. Thank you for your leadership. Together, we're taking real action to meet the nation's climate goals. So Maria and Kelly, please pass on my congratulations. And thank you.
How many of you learned something yesterday, at least one thing that you're going to take back to your organization to try and do different? Oh, I love that. Okay, wait, keep those hands up, because I want to figure out who doesn't have their hand up, and I'm going to come find you. I'm going to come find you and tell you, like, talk to you and make you, connect you with the right folks that we can make sure that you go back. Well, that's terrific. That's the goal of the summit. I was thinking about that last night. A couple people at the reception told me they had learned a couple things, and it made me very happy to hear, because that's the goal. We want you to go home having talked to organizations like yours, but also organizations very different. That's really what this is about, the cross-fertilization of learning among leaders, so that you all can take lessons learned from others and go back to your organization to truly accelerate, drive, continue the amazing work you're doing to drive energy efficiency and emissions reductions in your organization. So I talked to someone this morning who told me that the summit was filling their bucket. I won't rat him out. I'm winking over here. And that's terrific, because it really is nice, and we're glad you're here to be among a group of people and organizations that have the same priorities, goals, and hopes that you all do for making our country better, whether it's through energy efficiency or energy efficiency and decarbonization. So thank you again all for being here. So now I'm excited to start this morning's recognition by recognizing those organizations that achieved their goal. These are the 2022 goal achievers. So it's my pleasure to invite on the stage with me my colleague Carolyn Snyder. Carolyn is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Energy Efficiency at the U.S. Department of Energy. She and I both work in the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. And the way it's going to work today, we have 12 organizations who have achieved their goals in the past year. We have 5 that are with us today. And we are going to invite them up on stage to receive their crystal. They'll take a picture with Carolyn. You guys will all be cheerleaders for encouraging and celebrating their great work, and then they will set off the stage and we'll recognize another group of goal achievers from previous years. But without further ado, let's start. The first organization we want to highlight is the City of Knoxville, Tennessee. Knoxville, Tennessee, awesome. So City of Knoxville. You guys are so good with your applause, but now I have to read really fast. So, okay. Knoxville, Tennessee, we are excited because they met their 20...
We're not in the center, sorry.
What's that? Oh, we're good. Okay, so here's what you need to know about Knoxville. They achieved a 26% reduction in energy intensity across 3.3 million square feet. Through Knoxville's Energy and Sustainability Work Plan, the city has mapped out policies and programs to reduce excess energy consumption and standardize environmentally sustainable best practices. Its aggressive drive towards energy efficiency is the result of focusing on conservation, emphasizing awareness of low-cost opportunities for savings. Additionally, the city works to drive down their building footprint through performance contracts and close collaboration with the Knoxville Utilities Board to support the largest solar investment in the TVA territory. With us today is Grace Levine, Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Knoxville. Thanks, Grace. Okay, now let me read and then applaud. Okay, so next time, now we're going to recognize Lifetime. Lifetime, come on up, has improved energy performance by 38% by upgrading HVAC equipment and controls, implementing lighting retrofits, and undergoing a full commissioning process throughout its building portfolio of 16 million square feet. Lifetime is the only chain of athletic country clubs with over 150 locations nationwide to partner with us in the Better Buildings Challenge. They've demonstrated some unique energy efficiency measures, such as optimization solutions that cut down peak demand and run times of steam rooms in Lifetime's clubs. Peter Isabel, the Director of Energy Management and Sustainability, is with us here today to accept the award. Congratulations. So you want to go work out, go to Lifetime. That's the goal. Okay, next we recognize Minneapolis Public Housing Authority. Minneapolis Public Housing Authority has achieved a 20% reduction in energy intensity across 3.4 million square feet, 2 years ahead of schedule. Minneapolis Housing Authority has committed over 4,500 multifamily housing units to the challenge and has achieved energy savings from extensive energy performance contracts that included LED lighting upgrades, Energy Star qualified appliance replacements, installation due to re-roofing, and a robust preventative maintenance program for HVAC equipment. With us today is Mary Bowler, Managing Director of Low Income Public Housing at the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority. As many of you know, we work with organizations not just on energy, but also water and waste goals. So Wendy's is the next award winner, and they have achieved their energy goal. And the cool thing about Wendy's is that they've invited their franchisees to also work with their corporate headquarters. And so today we're going to recognize Wendy's Company, which has more than 6,900 franchisee and company-operated restaurants, is the first company to have its franchisees also join the Better Buildings Challenge. Wendy's has achieved a 25% reduction in water across 1.2 million square feet of company-owned properties by installing automated dishwashing equipment and piloting smart irrigation systems. We're also going to give an award and recognize, Thomas is going to sort of represent both organizations today, Wendy'em of Florida. They are a very large franchisee for Wendy's, and they've achieved a 31% reduction in water use across over 18,000 square feet. And this franchisee has become the first to achieve both their water and energy goals under the Better Buildings Challenge. They achieved their goal by installing wash machinery and performing consistent preventive maintenance and monitoring for leaks. With us today to be recognized for both of those groups is Thomas Grant from the Wendy's Company. Thanks, Thomas. Okay, and last but certainly not least is Will County, Illinois. Thank you. Come on up. Brianna Moore is here from Will County, and we are recognizing Will County for a 23% reduction in energy intensity across over 1 million square feet. Will County improved energy performance in its portfolio by completing energy-efficient retrofits, including lighting replacements, HVAC improvements, building envelope upgrades, and operating system adjustments. Its energy efficiency and conservation plans and progress reports guided those efforts and will for more than 10 years. With us today is Brianna Moore, Energy and Conservation Specialist for Will County, Illinois. Okay, there were, as I mentioned, 12 goal achievers this year, so we're just going to do a quick shout out for the other organizations that achieved their goal but weren't able to be with us here today. So you can see them on the screen. Bullitt County Public Schools, Fort Worth Independent School District, Jamaica Plains Neighborhood Development, LeGrand, Washington, D.C. Housing Authority, and Whole Foods Market. So if we can give all those guys a round of applause, even though they're not here, that's awesome. So as many of you know, we've had an interesting last couple years. So over the last 2 years, our summit has been virtual. So that's why it's so great to see everybody here today. But what we thought we would do is just bring up on the stage as a group the organizations from 2021 and 2020 that achieved their goals, because they never really got the opportunity to do this. As someone who had a child who never walked across the stage for their commencement in college, we thought it was really important to bring folks here to be recognized. So I'm going to ask all these organizations, we're going to take one group picture. I'm going to ask all these organizations to come up to the stage, if you will. We'll take one quick picture, move on to some other recognition, and then the lab panel. So if I can have Illumia, City of Orlando, Owens Corning, Steelcase. Come on, people. I know you're in the room because I talked to you this morning. Okay, great. That was the 2021 group. The 2020 group was Bank of America, Cleveland Clinic, Mercy Housing, Michigan State University, Nuveen, Parkway School District, USAA, and the University of Utah. So if you guys will give these guys all a round of applause, it'd be great. What a good-looking group. Thank you, guys, and congratulations. Okay, a couple more organizations, many of you in this room that we're going to recognize. So next group I just want to acknowledge is our inaugural group of Better Climate Challenge partners. Many of you in the room. We now have over 100 organizations working with us. We launched this, for those of you who were here yesterday to hear both Secretary Granholm and National Climate Advisor Gina McCarthy talk about it. We have over 100 organizations. This is really the federal platform to work voluntarily with the market, with organizations which are willing to step up and reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, Scope 1 and Scope 2, by at least 50% over 10 years, share what they're doing, and without using offsets. So just a huge shout out for those organizations working with us. We can't wait to work with them to figure out what's working, because we know we have lots of different pathways to move forward on decarbonization, and we know some of it, but we don't know all of it, and this is going to be a team effort, so we really appreciate these organizations standing up. Next group is the allies who are working with us in the Better Climate Challenge. These are organizations, typically NGOs, associations, important stakeholders that are going to work with us to make sure that the work we're doing, the solutions, the resources that we develop are made available and accessible to all the organizations they work with, and they're also going to be really important thought leadership partners with us in the challenge, so thank you to them. The next group I want to really give a shout out to is those organizations, many of you in this room, who are working with us on the low carbon pilot. For years, in the late to 20, it doesn't matter, 5 years ago, we started hearing from organizations. Yeah, I can't do math this morning. So, a number of years ago, our partners, you all, started talking to us about we've done efficiency. We really believe that there is there. We want to continue to work on decarbonizing our portfolio. And we didn't know quite what we wanted to do, so we thought we would pilot an effort where we ask organizations to take 2 of their buildings, plants, multifamily housing, properties, and work with us to understand really what it would take and to actually move ahead to decarbonize those buildings. And so this is the group of over 65 organizations that are working with us on the low carbon pilot. And just a huge shout out. I mean, those folks really stepped up when we needed them to sort of help us figure this out, and their work, their thoughts, their feedback was quite pivotal in how we ended up structuring the Better Climate Challenge. So just a huge shout out for all of you working with us on the low carbon pilot. A couple other groups. I'm hoping that all of you are beginning to see your names on a couple of these slides. As I mentioned, through the Better Buildings Initiative, remember, broad platform, includes better plants, the accelerators, low carbon pilot, Better Climate Challenge. We also are working with organizations who are interested in reducing their waste and water. And so we've asked organizations who want to work with us to join a network working with us. And so this is the current folks that are working with us on the Water Savings Network, and then the next slide you'll see is the Waste Savings Network. If your name isn't on here and you want to do that with us, we would love to have you. This is really a little bit more structured around convening and hearing best practices and ideas, as opposed to some of the more rigorous reporting we do through some of the other programs. Not any less important, because it really is important to attack those issues as well, and they all have energy implications, so we're delighted to be working with you. Okay, last couple slides I want to run through is many of you. When we ask you to set a portfolio-wide goal across your facilities and plants and multifamily housing, it's a lot of work. Lots of organizations are very big, they're constantly changing, they're buying and selling assets. So we just want to give a shout out. I know we had some goal achievers on stage, and those folks really were, and I appreciate your tremendous support for them this morning, because they deserve it for all the work they did to reach their goal. But there are lots of partners, many of you who are on track, and we just want to celebrate what you're doing as well, because you're on track working with us. So we're just going to go through the different sectors. I hope you see your names on there. We're loving working with you, and we look forward to continuing to do that. You can see the state and local group. And keep going. There we go. Multifamily, industrial partners. There are a lot of you doing some great work, so a shout out to all of you. So I'm just going to pause there and say, can you guys give yourselves, I hope you saw your names on those slides. So Okay, two more cohorts of folks that we want to recognize today. The next group is the Green Lease Leaders winners. So in 2014, DOE partnered with IMT, Institute for Market Transformation, to develop the Green Lease Leaders Awards program. This is really a recognition platform for the industry that really wants and is partnering with forward-thinking real estate companies who are effectively modernizing their leases, right? Because one of the questions we hear a lot, one of the barriers is, well, I can't do that because I got tenants, and the tenants don't want to engage on this stuff. So, sorry, can't do anything. Well, the Green Lease Leaders are folks who said, no, we actually can do something about that. We can change how we structure our lease to involve the tenants, get them on board, and actively work with them to reduce energy efficiency, to improve energy efficiency in their space. So this year, we're pleased to recognize 53 organizations across sectors, including commercial, multifamily, data centers, and the industrial parts of the market. We have a majority of Green Lease Leaders earning the Gold certification, signifying that they put leases into practice, and a large number of applicants are integrating green leases into 80 to 100% of their portfolio. We also have our first class of Platinum tier award winners, with 9 companies leading the way on environmental and social priorities. In 2022, the program expanded by more than 20%, although Green Lease Leaders, altogether, Green Lease Leaders partners manage over 5 billion square feet in the commercial and government space. So can we just have all those Green Lease Leaders, those of you in the audience, can we have you all stand, please? That would be terrific. Come on, if you're in the audience, let's see you. Come on, let's see you. Awesome. Yeah, stay standing, Sarah. Okay, thank you. So many partner successes to highlight. So thank you all for being part of the family and celebrating the success of many of your efforts and the efforts of your colleagues, peers, and sometimes competitors, but that's what this is about. So before we move on to our lab panel, there's just one last group of folks I want to recognize. I don't have slides for them, but that is the Better Buildings team at the Department of Energy, and we work with some great contractors, and together this family pulled off this event, hopefully flawlessly, well, with the exception of Dr. Richmond, but okay, so that's okay, right? Yeah, it's okay. I just want all of those folks who are part of the Better Buildings, Better Plants, Better Climate Challenge team to stand up just for a second. If you guys will help me, sometimes thank yous aren't big enough, but if you will all help me, a round of applause and a big thank you from all of us might go a far way. It is truly a team effort. I am up here at the podium, but it's because of all the hard work those people do. So thank you to Team Better Buildings, Better Plants, Better Climate Challenge. I really do appreciate everything you do. Okay, so now it's my privilege to introduce Carolyn Snyder back up to the podium. While she makes a couple remarks, we're going to move some chairs on the stage. So if you wonder why all of a sudden people are moving, it's not a snafu. People are moving to bring chairs on the table, on the stage, and she's going to lead the lab panel. Remember, you've got index cards. This is your opportunity. Stump the lab expert. So they're at the table. I want you to stump them. I want you to ask hard questions. I've asked them to be provocative. I've asked them to share with you as end users and people driving change in your organization the kinds of things that you should be looking for and paying attention to in the next couple years. So enjoy the panel. And with that, Carolyn, thanks so much for being here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you today. As Maria said, I'm the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Energy Efficiency at DOE. And I'm so excited to have been able to join the different meetings over the last 2 days and the exciting ones planned for today. Because as you all know well, our Better Buildings, Better Plants Summit, it's an incredible opportunity to engage with experts across a range of specialties and sectors representing all aspects of our economy and from across our country, working tirelessly together to achieve our shared climate goals. And that's why I'm excited about today's panel. As Dr. Richmond just mentioned, your feedback is essential to shaping the research, development, demonstration, and deployment investments across DOE and our national labs. And as our inspiring speakers who kicked us off yesterday in the panel pointed out, the work you lead contributes not only to economic and energy goals, but also to critical equity, public health, environmental, and national security challenges. And as much as the scientist in me loves to geek out on the latest innovation or technological advancement, it's irrelevant for addressing those challenges if our work is not grounded in what you are doing in your own organizations. Our job is to develop solutions that address the barriers you face and solutions that you can implement now and in the coming years. And together, as you've heard from our several speakers, those partnerships translates into real numbers on the scoreboard. And together, you partners in this room have contributed over 3,000 case studies and implementation models and toolkits that highlight your innovations and efforts to make businesses and organizations more competitive in today's energy economy. When market leaders like you lean into these challenges, when we work together to find new solutions and share those with others, that's how we pave the way for all of us to succeed with the daunting challenges in front of us. And so I'm extremely excited, as I said, to be here with all of you and celebrate the leadership you each do every day in your own organizations driving change. And as Maria pointed out, for years our mantra has been energy efficiency. And we know that energy efficiency is decarbonization. But we also know that fully decarbonizing our nation's buildings and industrial facilities is also going to require significant investments to power them with advanced energy technologies with lower emissions. And that's why we launched our Better Climate Challenge, where we're working with partners to develop pathways to get their buildings, homes, and manufacturing plants to reduce portfolio-wide greenhouse gas emissions by at least 50% within 10 years. As Maria pointed out with the slide this morning, we're so excited that more than 100 organizations have committed to join us in this effort so far. Look around the room. You'll see those members here today with the banner on their name tag. And as Maria said, if you haven't already joined us, remember those members of our team that stood up? Talk to them today. Talk to your colleagues who you see have already joined. We want to find a way to work together. If the goal seems daunting, that's the whole point. It's daunting. But we're going to work together to find pathways that can work for you. And in the full spirit of this initiative, we're going to share what we learn with the rest of the market, helping others, empowering others chart their own course. The Better Buildings Initiative creates this incredible mechanism for us to connect across the marketplace for those working day to day on implementing solutions and pathways to reducing their emissions with our nation's top scientists, researchers, and engineers. And as I said, and keep this in mind as we welcome our panel, your feedback directly informs DOE's investment portfolio. We at DOE, the National Labs, use your feedback regularly. It's one of the greatest values we have from this partnership, in addition to the remarkable accomplishments celebrated today. So I really can't stress how valuable it is. So look at your table, find the note card, start to put down thoughts, feedback, and especially probing questions for our panel. And as those of you who have been here before, remember, our National Labs join us to share what they're most excited about, innovations that they have the possibility of becoming game changers for you and your organizations. Today we have 3 senior National Lab members joining our panel. I'd like you to come join me on stage now. They really are excited for your questions. They'll each start with brief remarks, and then our goal is to reserve most of the time for that Q&A. So please, again, look for your index cards and start to get those questions ready to hand off to one of our team members. And with that, we will get ready for the panel. So first, today we have Dr. Craig Blue, who is the Advanced Manufacturing Program Manager for the Energy Sciences and Technology Directorate at Oak Ridge National Lab. Craig, over to you.
Okay, so we'll speak from here?
Yep.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. Thanks, Carolyn, for the introduction. And I had the fortune of being here a few years ago before COVID, and it was a really exciting environment. Next slide, please. I want to kind of set the stage. I'm known as kind of the manufacturing guy. I've been doing manufacturing for almost 30 years. But there's a critical need, really, to revitalize manufacturing, and I think we're in a state of transition. But today, if you look at manufacturing, 9% of employment, 12% of GDP, 20% of national capital stock, moving across 55% of patents, 60% of exports, and then what we do, R&D, 70% comes from manufacturing. But the future of production is really digital. And I'm kind of saying the stage here because I think digital is going to play a critical role also in this transition and decarbonization of industry. As the global demand rises and it's fragmented, we just got done with COVID and we see the supply chains. Manufacturers need to be agile. Technologies such as analytics, Internet of Things, advanced robotics, and 3D printing can play a critical role. There's over $500 billion of opportunity for companies that can go from one product to another. Next slide, please. So America's critical need to improve the digital adoption for boosting productivity and transforming how we make things. We've all heard about the digital thread, right? It's been around a decade plus. But really, when you take a look at our SMEs, small, medium-sized companies, companies under 500, there's 99% of our manufacturers are SMEs. And really, they haven't afforded the technology needed to step forward and really compete on an international market. You know, the gains have been primarily driven by a lot of our large manufacturers. So an innovation model is really needed to enable the adoption of the digital thread. Next slide. So the McKinsey study that I'm pulling this a lot out of was 2017 Made in America and kind of their projections. So manufacturing needs, advanced analytics to find solutions and improve margins, computer vision to spot defects, real-time closed-loop controls, you know, exoskeletons, smart glasses, robotics for improved performance, improved tool maintenance and repair. Almost everything you touch comes off a tool that was made from tooling. So, you know, where can we really do this? And additive manufacturing lends itself to that. Optimized process, reduce scrap. So really this adoption of digital thread, I think, will enable and drive the electrification and decarbonization of manufacturing. Next slide. So if you look at manufacturing, about a third of energy is used there. If you look at that subset, almost half of it is in process heating. If you look at the process heating, 90% of that is fossil energy based. And so then we start looking at transient technologies. Actually, can I use induction and things of this nature? Well, then it drives this digital thread, the need for automation, a lot of what I'm talking about. Next slide. So really, and I want to thank Sasha Nimblekar. I'm sure he's here. He's the one that created this slide. I think there's a variety of pathways to get there in terms of decarbonizing manufacturing. Low thermal budget transformative technologies, things like microwave, RF heating, ultrasonics, where I don't have that phase change and this huge energy consumption. Alternative thermal processing, as I mentioned, induction, infrared, you know, a lot of these advanced technologies, which again drives that need for this third column, which is transformative supplemental technologies. This is what I'm talking about here, smart manufacturing, closed loop controls. And the third, which I think has been addressed with this audience pretty heavy, is waste heat management technologies, high temperature heat pumps, thermal energy storage, and the like. Next slide. So I wanted to throw in a couple of examples where we've actually applied the digital thread. This one here, actually working close with our buildings people. And what we did is precast concrete industry came in, they said, we traditionally make molds for precast concrete. We make them out of wood, and then we put a resin. And we're really losing the black art and the workforce. Is there a way to basically 3D print these? We stood in and said, yeah, let's take a look at this, and let's work with the supply chain and the industry. So we directly printed the molds, and in this case, we're doing it for the Domino Sugar Building in Lower Manhattan. We went ahead, we directly printed, machined, all digital, and we applied it. And what we found is traditional molds last about 3-4 pours before it had to be replaced. In this case, about 200 pours. And there was a 40% reduction in actually cost. Did all 6,000 buildings off of the molds. AES and Akron, Ohio did the balance of the molds. Next slide. This one, again, I think is closer to home. Actually, again, applying the digital thread and looking at multifunctionality. Can we print walls where we have embedded sensors, heat sinks, and do heat exchange, things of that nature? Actually, this is a follow-on from the previous talk that I was here where we were using Skybam. Basic technology we developed in-house. You know, Sky Cam on football fields. Well, we developed a printer that's all cable controlled, and this was printed in that fashion. So taking that technology forward. And then I think my last slide, I wanted to throw in, as we just came off of COVID, this is another area. Actually, we worked across the DOE lab system, and again, applying the digital thread, actually directly printing and machining molds for face masks, test tubes. We even converted our carbon fiber line to make N95 media the filter material, and then we work through our transportation. I point to Johnny Transportation. I know he's at Enroll, but he used to be our transportation guy. And we converted Cummins lines, 2 of their filter lines for diesels, over to N95. That material was subsequently sent to Demotech in Florida, where they're making 3 million masks a day, and they employed 1,500 people. But this is kind of give you a sense of how rapid things can move forward. This was all done in about a 3 to 4 month time frame. So I look forward to the remainder of this and taking on questions, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Craig. So next we have Dr. Johnny Green Jr., who serves as the Associate Laboratory Director for Mechanical and Thermal Engineering Sciences at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. Johnny.
Thank you, Carolyn, and thanks to everyone for having us here. And I guess I've had the fortune of doing this virtually and in person, so it's great to be here. This is my first in-person conference in a couple of years, so it's really exciting to be, with a live audience. So yeah, just to build on what Craig talked about in terms of digital innovations and controls, I'll give a couple of examples of how controls can be used to help improve building energy efficiency as we get to more grid-connected buildings. So next slide, please. So of course you got to have a graph, right? Your engineer, your scientist, you got to have a graph in a talk. So this is just to set the stage of as we look at the future of our buildings. So you've got, let's say you've got a commercial, retail building. Let's say it's, you've got customers coming in and out. Let's say you've got solar panels on top. And now we're moving to a future where we're going to have more electric vehicle charging as well. And so as all of these things come together, the use of buildings and our building electric loads are changing. So if we look at the figure here and we look at the solid colors and the gray, orange, and blue, they represent a lot of the building loads that you would have in a big box retail building. And as you can see, as the time changes, which is on the x-axis, when the sun comes up, you see that curve dip down. And so with your traditional loads, your electric use is being offset by your solar, and then in the evening, it ramps back up again. And then with that curve on the top, if you add electric vehicle charging on top of that, okay, now you're getting those loads increasing again during the day, and you've got a really lot of stress on your system, which may have been sides for certain loads, but also cost savings, right? As you have all of these different loads coming together. So we really need to have some optimized solutions to do that. And so there's really a couple of strategies that I'll talk about. One using thermal storage with some controls, and another using battery storage with controls. So on the next slide, we have, so if you think about an airport, they're a huge campus, right? And a lot of airports are looking to decarbonize their campuses. And so one of the airports that we've worked very closely with is Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. They've been a leader in sustainability and decarbonization. And so one of the things that they're doing is they're looking at electrifying their vehicle fleet at the airport, electrifying the tugs and other vehicles that provide services to the airplanes. They've got retail inside the airport. They've got heating and cooling loads they're managing. So it's basically an ecosystem. It's a campus, a very large campus there. And so one of the things that we're doing at the lab is using our advanced research on integrated energy systems platform to work with them to help and understand their building loads and looking at how they can use thermal storage techniques to reduce some of those loads. So I don't know how familiar the audience is with digital twins. And so a digital twin is where you have a real campus, but then you make a model that represents that. So we work with the Dallas-Fort Worth team using some commercial software to develop a digital twin of their airport, and then they implemented a control strategy to help them look at their centralized plant where they have a lot of cooling. They've got a lot of liquid cooling there, and so they in the traditional way that they operate the airport, all the chillers are on or all the chillers are off. So you would cycle them on and off, and they have a certain load profile. So using some smart controls and knowing when and where they needed to provide energy, they changed the strategy with controls. So maybe they're all on sometimes, they're maybe half on, and they were able to reduce their building loads by about 20% using some of these smart control techniques and using thermal storage and dispatching it to their chillers in a more intelligent way. So that's one example of behind-the-meter thermal storage that uses really smart controls. The next example that I have, and if it works, it's dangerous. There's an animation button at the bottom left, which is always dangerous to have. Wow, it works, okay. So this is looking at our rooftop control units, which once again provide space conditioning. So this is, once again, if you look at think about a big box retailer, and this example is looking at how do you use controls for rooftop units and battery storage, traditional battery storage, and how do you use that to offset electric vehicle charging load. So in the example on the left, the peak demand with base building and electric vehicles would be almost 300 kilowatts of use as a peak, but using the control for RTU coordination and battery storage, you can reduce that to a little over 100. So you can make a significant change using these types of controls. So we're working with Emerson and some small cloud-based controls company for this type of strategy. So these are some things that I'm excited about that are emerging, and hopefully will be coming your way soon. So yeah, Roderick Jackson at our laboratory is our point of contact here, and is one person that you can reach out to for more information. So I think my last slide is just thanking everyone. So yeah, thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Johnny. And last but not least, we have Bing Liu, who is the Building Sector Manager at the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. Bing.
Thank you, Carolyn. And it's quite excited to be part of this panel, and also with all the audience, with you, the leading organizations, to learn from each other on the decarbonization of our buildings and leading the transition to the net zero future. The national decarbonization strategies, we really focus on trying to make our power grid clean, affordable. Meanwhile, we try to electrify our buildings, and with particularly on the fossil generated loads in the buildings. Next slide. I wanted to introduce the two technologies. I have really personal passion about that for you to watch out, and also I hope it can be implemented to your portfolios in the very near futures. One is about heat pump and heat pump water heater technology. The other one is we actually started moving to have a load flexibility as the virtual batteries in our buildings. And thank you, Johnny, to set up the stage on my second top point. Next one. Let me talk a little bit about heat pump and heat pump technologies. If you come into the conference yesterday, I'm sure you enjoyed the panels and the discussions on this, found your match of the heat pumps. But what I'm talking about is really what we need to do to move our next generation heat pumps to the broader and the faster market adoptions, and today and tomorrow's. So we have been working very closely with market leaders and the decision makers, fully understand what are the main barriers in terms of the market adoptions of these available technologies. So we identified a few barriers, and we can help to move the market. First, for example, we are doing the field validation of 120 watts heat pump water heaters, which could be a plug and play of any of the outlet of your homes. So one of the main barriers we identified is with the 240 watts heat pump water heaters in the homes. A lot of times we don't have that outlet available, or it takes more cost to upgrade electric panel grade. So with these technologies available, it will be significantly reduce their installation cost and make much easier for installation. And also, there's a new product coming to the market, which is we call the combination unit heat pumps, can provide both space heating and water heaters to our homes and small commercial buildings. But before we get the product out really to the market, we're conducting the third-party validation so we can make sure that the functionalities, the utilities, and also the performance, it deliver what it's supposed to deliver. So with the promise of these new combi systems, we believe it can achieve energy efficiency, reduce the cost, and for multiple uses in terms of single family, multifamily, again, and smarter commercial buildings. Also, we try to develop a decision tools to help the contractor really find the best match of their heat pumps at a specific, their applications as well. So make that very easy for them not involve a PhD to make that a quick decision tools, to find the best product for their particular application. Last but not the least, we also really into the areas we can turn the heat pump into intelligent devices. So the heat pumps now have devices we're testing to negotiate with the power grid, be part of their attribution to their grid services. Next slide. While we're working on the residential homes, what about the commercial buildings? While we try to electrify the buildings, it is very important we also turn our buildings through the advanced controls and the load flexibles to make that really as attribution to the grid services and reduce the needs on the infrastructure investment as we try to electrification. So we use the load flexible technologies tested in our own campus for 16 buildings and improved. We're not able to have load reductions. We also be able to offer 200 kilowatts demand flexible capacities. After we prove the concept, we work with utilities and the key partners testing at a much larger scales in the real world. One of the highlights is we're going to do over 100 buildings testings in Salt Lake City and another 100 plus buildings in Spokane, Washington, our own backyard of the lab. So the testing is really a mix of the commercial, residential building, also with the 1,000 unit of the multifamilies, all electric. And the testing is really helping looking into, while we're moving into the distributed energy resources with all electric buildings, with EV chargers, batteries, the PVs, what is the optimized way to really to make our loads be part of the virtual batteries for power grid. So how about the scale that up to a size of the Texas or across the country? We recently finished one of these kind of largest study, really use Texas power grid to say if we apply this controllable building loads to that size, I'm happy to report that we see the potential as a peak demand between 9 to 15% and annual energy savings for $5 billion just for the size of Texas. Not to mention if we can scale up across the whole country. So next slide, which is my last slide. Yeah. It's very exciting to come into this journey together to decarbonize our building and move our future to zero carbon. It's not an easy journey, but I think it's a very exciting opportunity to provide the savings to our consumers and also bring their more resiliency to our built environment and our power grid. With that, I'm really looking forward to work with you and give us the feedback, and we can really have this journey together. Thank you.
Thank you, Bing. So we've got a lot of great questions. Keep them coming. We're going to try to get through as many as we can before Maria gives us the hook, because we've got important sessions following after us. So I will start with a general one because you've piqued the interest of the room. And so for those who don't have experience in this, what's the best way for a manufacturer to partner with the labs if they're excited about implementing some of the advanced technologies that you spoke about today?
So I'll kick it off. Across the DOE system, we have user facilities. Specifically at Oak Ridge National Lab, we have 4 user facilities in the applied energy space. I'll talk a little bit about the manufacturing demonstration facility. That probably surprises some people that I would. But the manufacturing demonstration facility is really a facility that's state-of-the-art in terms of additive manufacturing, composites, metrology, machining, all the things you would need to actually truly assess the viability of a specific technology in an industrial environment. So it's basically commercial scale. We have an open call for proposals. You can come in, visit, kind of ground what you want to look at, talk to experts, write a short proposal. It's reviewed by DOE, and we're given the thumbs up, thumbs down, and usually we'll move forward with a cooperative research and development agreement. But there's a lot of different mechanisms. That's one of the mechanisms that can be exercised. The MDF does about 50% of the labs cooperative research and development agreements on the order of 40 to 50 a year. We also can do user agreements. In the case of a user agreement, the companies are open to publishing the results, and we work side by side. There's no exchange of funds. The company funds their side, DOE funds our side. So that's 2 mechanisms that can be exercised.
Sure, just to add on to that, as Craig mentioned, the labs have a lot of great capabilities that are accessible to industry and partners. There's also a lot of technical assistance programs as well, which is definitely an area of emphasis for the department right now, trying to make sure that communities and key stakeholders have access to the lab system and have the ability to address any questions that they have, especially as we move towards a clean energy transition. We want to make sure that the technologies we develop are available and accessible to a wide range of communities. So, Communities Leap is a program that is an example of that, where just 20 awards were made working with different communities. So there's a lot of vehicles that are out there, in addition to what Craig talked about with user programs and industrial collaborations. Also a lot of technical assistance work as well.
I will add on to that is, we are lab researchers, but we are also people. We're real here, so don't get afraid of the process. And the one thing we have been really focused on is last miles, because there's a lot of great emerging technologies invented by the national labs. But a lot of times, you just really need a last push to get really into the market, something we call, market transformations. At P&Ls, we really, really focus application engineering, which is we work closely with the market to fully understand where are the pinpoint, what we can do to remove a lot of risks. Through the demonstrations, through the field validation, third-party, documentation, and most importantly, lessons learned, right? So then we can really have a proven technologies transferred to the market. So we have their real actual homes. We do the technology testing on their campus, and we use our own buildings as a test bed. I'm not sure our facility people are too excited about that, but they put up with us. Then we really move in the technologies with the leading organization like you doing a lot of demonstration works before we really scale up. Another thing we're really working hard to address is the cost, to reduce the cost down, not just the hard cost, and also a lot of soft cost, that really we believe help moving to the market transformation. So work with us, talk to us, and we're willing to talk to you as well.
Wonderful. Subtitle for the panel, we are humans as well, so thank you for that. And I will say, if you ever have a question, don't hesitate to reach out to the Better Buildings team, Better Climate, Better Plants. We're here to help make those connections if you don't already have them established with the labs, so thank you for that. Our next question is actually a follow-on from being the comments that you were just making about other ideas around accelerating the commercialization and scaling of the technologies that are coming out of our national labs, especially given the urgency of the challenges in front of us. So I'm curious, any other brief thoughts any of our panelists would like to share on that?
Maybe I will start it. We are testing a new license agreement. It's called the trial commercialization. The load flexible technologies I mentioned, we're really ready for any of you to try into that new control technologies into your portfolios. It's really reduced the waste with energies and also help on your peak load demand as well. So this new trial commercializing license going to be significantly reduce the paperwork and have the technology at your hand. So that's one new areas we've been working with DOE, try to make the commercialization of the technologies to decision maker like your hand quicker and with less cost to do it.
So,
Go ahead.
So just kind of adding on to what I talked about earlier, specifically in our Billings area, we have a tech collaborations program, which was modeled after the MDF, again, where companies can come in and actually sit down with experts, work side by side on new technologies, and in many respects kind of try before you buy. But I think being hit right on the head, sit down and talk to the individuals within the lab, converse back and forth. Really the strength is our industry partners. Our industry partners know where the pinch points are. Another point that she made that I really agree with, a lot of times when we work with the industry, they got 90% of the solution. And it may be that we're just adding one part that pushes it over into true commercialization. So these are key elements. Understanding on a daily basis what industry is up against and then communicating that is so important.
Yeah, and just one other example is I know when in the Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Program, they've had these corporate research and development agreement or CRADA calls. So for example, in the hydrogen fuel cell program, they've had CRADA calls on certain technology areas that are relevant. With I mentioned the Aries platform that we have at NREL that connects to other labs. I think the department is thinking about how to make that more accessible to industry and having almost a quick turnaround mechanism where there's almost a user program model. We have some funding set aside to rapidly work with industry. So those are some of the things that we're considering and thinking about to try to be more rapid and responsive.
Great, thank you. So we've got several questions related to renewable energy. So I will touch on the broad topics, and then each of you can dive into one piece of it. One around shedding light on the progress of other renewables that we're not hearing as much about, like tidal, wave, geothermal, et cetera. Another about current and future cost curves for major renewable energy and decarbonization technology. One around on-site renewable energy generation opportunities besides photovoltaics. And lastly, what are these national labs doing to work with advancing the grid to accommodate more renewable energy? So a lot of big questions, but just to keep us going, why don't each of you jump in on one part of it?
Okay, I guess since I'm from the National Renewable Energy Lab, I guess I'll take the first cut on that and work in a lot of these areas. So, great question. So I think the first question was, wind and solar are what are, talked about, most prominently when you talk about renewable energy, but there's also water power technology. So there's conventional hydro and pump storage, which can be used for longer duration storage for the grid, which is really important. And then I don't know if folks are familiar with the blue economy, but if you think about remote areas, island areas, areas that don't have access to energy that are out in the ocean, harvesting wave energy and tidal energy is another area of active research within the department. So that's some of the work going on in that space. And then geothermal energy is another great resource, and not only for energy generation, but also for thermal energy storage, and how do you couple that into combined systems. And so there's a lot of work going on that, in the department looking at that, and there's geothermal heat pumps, for example, is another example of that. So Wind and solar, definitely get a lot of it from a generation standpoint, but I think water and geothermal, and not only in terms of power generation, but there's a great value of storage and maybe even providing thermal energy to heat and cool spaces. So those are a couple of things going on in those spaces.
I want to add one thing is don't forget we actually have very powerful policy tools already in place to really helping us lead into these renewable integration futures, which is code and standards. I know Rooney is going to appreciate I mentioned that. So as example, while we see the price starting really continue to drop down for the on-site renewables, and we also starting to see the emerging increase of the combination of the on-site renewables with the building batteries as a package as well. So we're getting to the point is what is the optimize of the designs and the constructions between tracking down the energy efficiency and the renewables. So we have been actually using the building energy codes to starting to really have more and more mandate requirement of the renewables. We recently also support DOE to submit their codes requirement for the EV readiness. So this is a really pretty big deal because if that kind of the infrastructure get into the codes, it's giving a really strong signal to the market in terms of, this is coming. This is going to be the requirement, for the manufacturers and for the, a lot of these makers is get ready for that. So we try to building up that market, demand from the codes and the standards perspective to helping us move to that direction.
And so I would add, at Oak Ridge, we're primarily energy efficiency, but we do enabling things as we look at, say, the renewables. If you say look at offshore wind, we have a capability of looking at low-cost carbon fiber. As your blades get longer, your spar caps have to have basically high modulus, keep from actually hitting the tower. We'll work on things like that. Direct printing of molds, tools, things of that nature. The same holds true in the water area and some of the other geothermal. So we've looked at a lot of advanced materials in manufacturing as it relates to those renewables.
Thank you. So going back actually to some of the remarks you kicked us off with, Craig, there are several questions inspired by the numbers you quoted for SME manufacturers.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I think captures it well. How do SME manufacturers gain access to these technologies? How do we help the little guys that don't have the resources to compete with the large, big guys who are leaving us behind? What more could we be doing at DOE and the national labs?
Okay, so this is something I'm always very excited about because early in my career I did my own startup and it was a hardware actually making things and it was inherently very difficult. So I went through that, and so while it may seem daunting, actually the national labs are very open to engaging with industry. We talked earlier about existing user facilities and so forth. So get on the phone, call, come visit. You'll get the tours of the capabilities and really interact with the staff. What we find a lot of times, industry will come and they think maybe that they want additive manufacturing and they leave with something completely different, and we're connected to the supply chain. So even a relatively small company, when I say small, I'm talking about 3 people. Probably the most wonderful example, it'll only take me a minute, Emergy came to us. A small company actually out of Colorado, woman-owned company, and she had an idea for low-head hydro, but just a handful of people, and she thought maybe we'd print the blades. And when we sat down, we did a tech collaboration with them, did a small CRADA, and we decided, no, what we want to do is we want to be able to print the molds. And then we connected her company to the supply chain, and they did aluminum castings. Within the one piece of work, she was able to put together 10 low-head hydro systems and test them in the field. 12 months later, she signed a deal with GE. And she's just, a company of 3 to 5 people. I think that's a perfect example. But when Bing said it, engage, because who knows? I always say, everyone comes through the door, everyone's smart. We got to figure out the next great idea might be coming through the door. So I think that we have existing programs. that are available. And like I said, just come and visit the various labs.
Great, thank you. So we've got a couple technology-specific questions. So I'll read 3, and you each can just grab one that you're most excited to speak to. The first is around what are the labs doing to address cybersecurity risks? Each of you have touched on different elements of cloud and IoT solutions. The second is commenting on data. Much of the talks over the last 2 days have talked about the importance of data to achieve energy efficiency goals. What do you think of using thermal or heat emissions data from space to monitor and track progress on building structures and to get insights about heat loss, activity, insulation? And a third one to tease you with, your thoughts on the future prospects for measuring and valuing embedded carbon in our buildings and facilities, as well as reducing effective emissions from demolition and construction waste.
So yeah, maybe I can jump in on the first one. Cyber, I think that was the question. So there's a lot of cyber expertise in the lab system. So yeah, I won't name the labs, but there's a lot of labs do that. But at NREL, one of the things that we're looking at, we're really focused on. Our mission is, energy efficiency, renewable energy, working very closely with industry. And so, the current grid and the current energy system works in a certain more centralized way, but as we go to the future energy system that we're looking at and trying to enable, it's more decentralized, and there's a lot more communication areas and a lot more areas of potential vulnerability. And so we're looking at how do we architect the future energy system to prevent and mitigate these kind of attacks. So one example that exists, and this was announced by Kelly Speaks Bachman and also by David Turk within the last year. We're working with the department on a Clean Energy Cyber Accelerator, where we're bringing in different utilities and partners that are leveraging the Ares research platform that I talked about to look at different cyber threats and vulnerabilities. And we're actually working with large and small companies to look at, hey, how can you then, are these handful of threats really serious? And then what are some vendor solutions that can address them? So that's one example of how we're really looking at how do we try to take cyber into the future energy system that's coming along with all the different technologies we're having to integrate.
Oh, I will add in a little bit cyber solutions. We actually already working with broader communities. We have offered is their control platforms with their cyber protections in that. It's called Virtron, and it has been used by the small companies, large companies. Particularly when we're talking about advanced controls, you have to address the cyber before you go any further. We have a lot of work in our advanced controls work in the Department of Defense portfolios. So cyber security and data protection is the first thing they ask in order to, at the building and facility level of the controls. So if you are really interested in this free but cyber protected platforms on their controls, please talk to me. And I will connect you to the right people, and we have all the technical system support thanks to Department of Energy, and we can provide that kind of support. And you also can talk to other users who has been using that platform on the cyber related controls in your portfolios.
So I would add, and I hate to go down the cyber route again, but DOE ERE Advanced Manufacturing Office actually has a cyber institute, CyMANI, the Cyber Manufacturing Innovation Institute, led by the University of Texas at San Antonio. Open to new membership continuously. There's a broad swath throughout the entire supply chain. It's a great point of entry, particularly if you're looking at manufacturing. And there's a good group of people that are pushing forward. We're serving as kind of the test bed for that, for discrete manufacturing as well as continuous manufacturing. So I would engage there.
Thank you. I think that was a good data set of how much cyber is on all of our minds. So I wish we had enough time to get through all the questions, but we're coming to near the end. So I'm going to go dark and then positive with our last two questions. So the next one, what scares you the most? What keeps you up at night? What are we not ready for?
Okay, I'll go first. To be honest, the thing that probably troubles me the most is as we develop the new energy system, that we don't perpetuate inequities that currently exist, and that we have technologies that are really accessible for all, and we can make energy available to all people as best we can. So that's something that we're really passionate about, and that's the thing I'm most concerned about, is just making sure that we don't make things more inequitable as we develop these new technologies and implement these solutions.
Okay, my turn for confess. The most scary part to me is we all feel the tremendous stress in terms of we really need to competing with the time to move the needles, decarbonize our building. And we all know electrification is one of the promising technology to leading us. Well, we try to make our power grid clean, and to where to find this right balance, try to electrify the building, while at the same try to clean up our power grid. So the most scary part for me is maybe we installed the electrification technologies, but we inadvertently to add in the utility bill burdens to our consumers. So that's kind of a nightmare I really hope we try to avoid from the beginning. And also the uneven burdens to underserved communities, because we're really learning how to work with all inclusive, to be honest. So to bring the more benefit to all, and in a cost-effective way. If you have a solution, we're learning here, but it's really worried me a lot.
For me, it's easy. I'm concerned about our small, medium-sized companies and making sure that they get access to state-of-the-art technology. There's sometimes an assumption that, say, like machining and machine tools, what could you possibly do there? We've developed apps where you can walk up to a machine as it's cutting and actually pull out your cell phone, and it can listen to the machine and optimize for feeds and speeds and double your production for the same exact energy footprint. But how do you get that out there? And we're working with the supply chain to that industry, but SMEs needing to be internationally competitive. So that's my biggest concern. It's the heartbeat of America's small companies.
Thank you. So to bring us up to enter the rest of our day, now tell us, what do you think 5 years from now is going to be our game-changing decarbonization solution that will be all over this summit in 2027 that we haven't been talking about today?
Wow, yeah, I wasn't ready for that one. I think it's going to be, as Craig talked about this, digitalization. I think, we've got our phones and the apps and those kind of things. And so I think it's going to be just a lot of these controls and these innovations of how do you make, use your phones and other technologies to control different loads and things in the building. So I think that digital age is what's really going to change things over the next few years.
So I agree entirely with Johnny in regards to this. We've been talking about it for years, but data analytics is becoming real. We have the ability to actually design parts, track them spatially and temporally, and then actually qualify the parts and qualify a lot size of one. With small companies, if I have to machine, I'll go back to machining, 8 parts to figure out how to machine it, and I only have an order for 10, I just lost. So that ability to make parts right the first time, and that's just an example, but this adoption of the digital thread and moving forward and fully understanding my manufacturing.
Well, 5 years from now, I will be very, very excited to see we finally have the policy in place leading a really market demand to retrofit our existing building stocks and in a wide cost way. So we are part of the teams to support our president announcement of the National Building Performance Coalition. In 5 years, several leading states and cities will start to implement that mandatory requirement to counting the buildings with the performance accountabilities. And then with the consequent living with that. I hope that's going to be a trend, really change the games in our building efficiency industry and see building as a business market for a lot of technologies we can help to implement it. So I'll be very excited to see that happening.
Thank you. So as you well know, we use the word partner and partnership to describe what we do here. And as you can hear, we really mean that. So our commitment to you in the coming year is that we strengthen that partnership, the conversation about feedback loops, new and different ways to be working together, reaching more parts of our country. So please join me in thanking our 3 panelists today.
Right there. Thank you all. That was absolutely terrific. I'm about to send you all off into the summit. I just have 3 announcements, if I could. So make sure you fill out your feedback forms. Those are on the app. There's paper copies. I read them. I read every single one personally, much to the staff's dismay and chagrin. I do. I read every one. So write a note. Hi, Maria. Email me, because I will, because I'll have read it. So please do send the feedback forms, because we're very interested in your feedback and making this summit better for all of you. If you are interested in joining one of the teams that you saw, the Waste Network, the Water Network, the Climate Challenge, please, there are DOE folks roaming around, so find one of them and make the deal. It'd be awesome. We'd love to have you. And then just one logistical thing. There is a very cool session called Choose Your Own Solution that the industrial team is running, and the location of that has moved. It's not going to be in the Lincoln Ballroom. It's going to be in the Washington Ballroom. The app is updated to reflect that, but I just wanted to say that out loud here, too. So we have 2 more sessions for you at the summit, one before lunch, then we're just going to have a networking lunch. There's no programming. The idea is to just have you all talk to each other over lunch. So networking lunch in this ballroom, a session after that, and then that's the end of the summit. So that's our last time. This is our last time to sort of say to all of you, thank you again for coming. We appreciate your being here. Enjoy the rest of the summit. Have a great day. Thank you.